Hello, all my crafty people out there. It's time for this week's project. If you haven't been here before, my name is Stephanie and I upcycle clothing generally from my local thrift stores. Occasionally, I need to add some fabric like this project, and I do go to our local Joann's as long as it's local. I know we're all going to be sad about that, but let's not talk about it. This week's project was actually voted on, and the votes were pretty consistent in two main patterns, but we may do more than one, so everybody's happy. But the first one we're going to do for sure is the McCall's 8161 with the fancy little bell sleeves. I'm pretty excited about this. The only thing I'm concerned about is it is kind of fitted, and you know, you want to make sure everything fits properly. Fortunately, this particular pattern has a cup size incorporated in the top, so I think it's going to work out. This will be our pattern. This will be our shirt, and it's not anything special. It's a Covington. It's I think it would probably be considered like an extra large. So it's got plenty of fabric, and the other thing about it is we're going to use this button placket to our advantage in the pattern. So I think it'll be good. Oh, and I only paid $1.50 for it because, actually, I think I only paid $1 for it. No, it was $1.50. This was on sale for the Saturday Goodwill sale. And I found this. Now, I did spend a little bit of money on this. Again, I went to Joann's. And this is what we're going to make our bell sleeves out of. It's very flowy, which was what I was looking for. It's kind of silky, but not like satiny. I'm probably going to dread this fabric choice, but I've got some lace to put around, some tiny little lace to put around the edge to help us hem. So hopefully this will work out. And if you like this kind of content, or if you think you want to see if I can actually do it, by all means, like, subscribe, follow along, comment, and don't forget to share. And I'll see y'all at the table. Okay, everybody, if you've ever seen me do this before, you know there's a couple of hard, fast things we got to do to this shirt to make it what we want. So, first thing, I'm going to take the pocket off. Second thing, I'm going to run up the sides and zip the sleeves off, because the sleeves we will be using for the sleeves, the top half of the sleeve. The bell part will be that pretty floral fabric that we picked out, or I picked out. So, I'm going to take this off first, and then once we get that done, we'll have a flat piece of fabric we can work to lay out our pattern on top. And as I said before, we're going to utilize this button placket, but this time we're putting it on the back. And I may add, because this is a typical man's shirt, you know, it's not got buttons all the way to the bottom because it's going to be tucked in usually on them. So I am going to probably add at least one button here, so I'll have to line it up the same length apart. And if I need a second one, another one down here, I might, but I think I can get away with just adding one extra button. And of course, there's always an extra button on the shirt. So we're good for that. Let me get to cutting up. Okay, since we're going to add an additional button to the back for the placket, what I'm going to do is I've unbuttoned these two so I can measure between this one and the last one. And I want to measure from the bottom of this button to the bottom of this button. And the reason is because your buttonhole makers, typically, or at least that I understand, will they start from the bottom and go up. So I want to make sure I mark the correct bottom. So this is the bottom of this hole, and this is the bottom of this one. And now I'm going to slide this down here so I can mark where that bottom is. Okay, so now I know where the bottom of the button should be. And just for giggles, let's make sure we line it up properly. So we're going to line up our ruler right up against these two to use them as a bearing. So that will be the bottom of my buttonhole. Okay, I am not sure how many of y'all have used your buttonhole maker. This is the one I have with my brother 4000D. And it's pretty typical, I believe. So I'm going to take my button. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to squeeze down. That helps me figure out, or that figures out the size I need. So then I'm going to connect it. And I'm going to pull down this little lever that lands up against this gauge that, again, helps me figure out, or helps the machine figure out, how big the buttonhole needs to be. And you have to turn it on, or at least I do. I have to put on my buttonhole stitching selection. So I'm going to do again, I'm going to put the buttonhole maker right across. There's some little crosshairs on the foot. It'll go right over this because the buttonhole maker goes up, over, down. So we're going to make sure that we get an extra one in there. Okay, we got a few decisions to make. Now I have folded the front of my shirt in half with the button placket being, essentially it's going to become a fold. And here's my thought process. This is the back of the shirt. And in the pattern, from here forward up to the neckline is a little placket. So you can put it over your head because this isn't made out of any kind of stretchy fabric. So you want to be able to get this little fitted shirt over your head so there's an opening. But I'm going to save myself the time and put buttons all the way down the back. The other question I have is how long? Now there's a long version that goes from here to here, which is an extra, almost 3 inches. And then there's a shorter version. Now I have measured from the back of my neck on my collar to my waist, a little bit beyond my waist. And I think that I'd be better fitted for the shorter one because, let's face it, I'm not tall. And I also want this button to land at the very top, so I don't want to go over it much more than a seam allowance. So I'm going to have just enough to put a seam allowance over this button and have this bottom line, which is the short shirt, meet that hemline. And I think that's where we're going to go with it. The only thing you've got to make sure of is that your front and your back on this seam line are exactly the same. Otherwise, they won't match up. Okay, I've opened up the sleeve, cut the cuffs off, and opened it up under the arm, that seam that goes under the arm. I've got the two pieces facing right sides together, so you see the buttons are on top of each other there. This is our sleeve top, and I am going to cut out the single and the double notch. It looks very symmetric, so that will be important to make sure. I mean, I don't know that it really would go in backwards because it is so symmetric, but I just want to make sure that it fits properly. Okay guys, it's time to meet the real challenge of this blouse, the sleeve. Now this is the sleeve. Yes, it's huge. And this fabric is super slinky. It's going to be fun. Y'all know how it is. All right, what I thought I would do, since this is symmetric, I know I need to catch that notch because that notch is what's going to correlate with the notch on my my sleeve, the end of the sleeve. But since it's symmetric, I thought maybe we could And I did iron the pattern just to make sure I got all the creases out of it. So I fold it in half like this. Make sure all the edges are meeting. Everything's good. The notch is in the center there of the circle. Make sure it's even on both sides. Okay? And when I do that, I've got the fabric folded like it, you know, just its single fold. I'm going to fold it over to the edge. And I'm going to make sure that when I do that, that this fold right here isn't buckled and it actually is doubled properly. In other words, it meets. This is slinky fabric, so we're going to make the best of this. I think it'll work. This way we won't have to worry about cutting this big circle, but we can cut it in half like this. And we also won't have to worry about the finagling of trying to put a cut in the center of this circle and, you know, trying to cut it out without it shifting as well. We almost forgot the little pieces that go around the neck, the interfacing that goes around the neck. And it is two of these, one of these on the fold, and I've got, I'm using the rest of the sleeve. And I've also got some fusible interfacing so I can cut it all at once. You know me, I don't like to do a lot of extra cutting, that is. Okay, y'all, it's time to transfer our darts. I transferred the ones on the back, and I'm going to show you the technique I use. If you call it that, I just like to mark once if I can. You know me. So this dart is actually fairly simple to find the corner of, or the one side of, because of the angle of the fabric. It's just this line that we really need right here. So what I like to do is I'm going to fold my pattern down on that line. And I'm just going to find the number 12 there. Yep, I said that. And that is our crease, or our line. I'm going to line it up down here where you can see the fabric and the pattern match. I'm going to take my little handy dandy ruler here. Now, I don't have a ruler quite long enough because this is where the 12 is, right here. But you put your ruler on the point and you just mark over. So you've marked that line that you need to meet this line. So we're just going to meet these lines. And you can put your pattern back down just to make sure your lines are proper. Draw them a little dark if you can. And I like to use chalk for this reason. So when I do this, and this is the wrong side of the fabric. Don't forget, we're marking on the wrong side of the fabric. You can tell that because of the hem. And you're just going to roll it over here carefully. Try not to put it down till you've got it lined up. Like that. And then you just want to rub. Just rub it. And then what will happen is you'll have the mark on the other side. You can darken it up. Bob's your uncle. All good. Okay, everybody. Here's our first little hiccup with using the button placket. The lining that goes over the back collar. It will, the way it is right now, there's two pieces and they fit. They're going to fit. This one will fit and it'll go right underneath the button placket and it will not interfere with the button itself, which that one's fine. No worries. That one can be applied. And I serged the ends because I just want to be able to fold them over. I don't want to have to do any kind of extra hemming. This one is a little more complex because it covers up the buttonhole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the serger and I am going to serge off about, probably about an inch actually, this part right here. So what will happen is when this comes up against the button placket, it won't go over the button placket. And then when we sew around the edge of the neckline to attach the lining, we will sew over the button placket on both sides separately, not together. I don't want them sewn together. And then we'll fold them under and create kind of a hem there. But we'll still use the interfacing around the rest of the neckline to give it the stability. But I don't think we need any extra stability on the button placket because it's already doubled and quadrupled. Let's go sew all of our shoulder seams. So we're going to sew these shoulder seams for the lining and the shoulder seams for the front and back. And of course, right sides together. Okay, I wanted to show you before I put the necklines together. It's kind of hard to see here, but this is the back of the shirt where the button placket is, and I went ahead and ran a serge line all the way around, the neckline. And the reason I did that is because when we turn this under and the lining doesn't quite meet the edge, I want to make sure that's finished so it doesn't get in the way, and we won't have to do anything extra. We're just gonna have to roll it over like a little hem and top stitch it down. I didn't want it to be messy, so I just serged it. But right now what I'm doing is I am pinning the collar to the lining. Oh, and I also serged my shoulders. Usually you open the seams up, but I serged them and pushed them to the back because I just want to make sure they're really secure. You do not have to do that. That's just me being me. Okay, before I top stitch this down, again, I'm going to be folding the interfacing into, or the lining into the collar, kind of like we do with the bias tape. And before I do that, I wanted to lessen the bulk a bit, so I cut the lining piece very close to the stitching. That'll give us a cleaner, less bulky seam there. But I'm going to turn it all in and top stitch it very close to the edge, give it a nice look. Okay, everybody, we have our front and our back sewn together, and we have our neckline put in, and it's top stitched down, and it does not interrupt our button placket in the back. I also just did a quick stitch down the button placket to just kind of keep it in place. I didn't want it bowing or anything like that. And I did some trying on and some measuring. And as I was concerned, it's a little tight in some spots. Now, what we could have done in the beginning is take a few more measurements possibly and averted this problem with either a larger cup size, but I did follow the directions, or a larger size. The only problem with the larger size is my shoulder starts to go and it starts to get big in the wrong way. So we're going to experiment in this construction process. I have cut two 2-inch strips from the back of the shirt and we are going to add them to the sides. Now I know, first thing you think is, well, are the sleeves going to fit? Well, the sleeves have some easement, and I think that they will still fit. We just won't have to use as much easing. But if they do not fit, we will make accommodations in the sleeve for the process. Okay, next thing we really need to do is work on the sleeves. Now, I know that adding this fabric to the side could make the sleeves possibly not fit. And yes, I serged down the edges just for security. It's cotton, so it frays. But anyway, I left this big long piece on the side of the shirt where I added this to the side. And I left this here in case I have to use it like at an angle to accommodate the sleeve. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to, but we've got it there just in case. We can always cut it off when we attach the sleeves. These are our two sleeves, and we've got two things. We've got a few things actually to do to them. One, I want to turn around and still put the easing stitch in from notch to notch here. So I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch from the edge and probably about a 1/2 inch from the edge. I'm using white thread. I'm going to use a 3.5 millimeter stitch just to give it the ability to gather a little, and so we can ease it into the sleeve. I'm hoping that we'll have enough excess where it won't need as much easing maybe. So that's going to the machine for the easing stitches, 2 easing stitches. This is our, let me put this out of the way. This is our big bell. Remember we folded our fabric in half and cut this out. So we should have 2 of these sleeve extensions, bells, whatever we want to call them. And because this fabric is not that great to work with, I don't think. It's kind of crepey, kind of silky. Instead of doing a rolled hem or something, the serger definitely would eat it alive. I am going to use some lace that I bought. So see, now we've got 2 beautiful pieces. And that notch is what's going to center on the front of the sleeve. So that was just helpful. Not absolutely 100% necessary. This is directional. And the direction is proper as far as when you hold your hand up, all the flowers will go down. I think that'll look good. And it's the same on both sides. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this little cotton lace. It's not anything fancy. It's just kind of small. And I'm going to sew it onto the edge of this piece, right sides together. And that will give me the ability, once I do that, to turn it over and do another little stitch on it. And that will give me like some security. So just like adding entredot to or a lace to the edge of anything, this is going to give us the opportunity to hem it and secure it without having to do a lot of extra hemming. All right, we're on the final stretch. We have the 2 sleeve tops, and I only ran 1 gathering stitch around the edge. I think that I can ease it with 1, and honestly the instructions said 1, and then the other part of the instructions said 2. I'm going with 1. I'll be good. And these are our finished bells, and I bought spools of lace that were 3 yards long. I might have a foot left. So essentially you got to be prepared for a long haul. This is, I'm going to press them down. They're not pressed yet. But this is at least 2 yards of fabric all the way around. So it takes a little while to hem these. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put these right sides together and sew this seam down on each of the sleeves. The sleeve, the inseam that goes underneath the arm. And I am going to, because this hole is specific, I'm going to use the recommended seam allowance at the end of my sleeve here. So I'm going to do 5/8 inch here, and I am going to taper it down towards the top of the sleeve. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to give myself a little extra space because I did the expansion under the arm. I want to make sure I have enough. I'm pretty sure I will have enough sleeve even with the easing, but I just giving myself a little spare room. Okay, I have pinned my sleeves right sides together with the bell. So this is the outside, and obviously, this is the outside of the bell, but they're right sides together. I'm going to go stitch around this edge, and then I'm going to turn them out and top stitch this seam down to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, we have our sleeves made. Both of them turned out great. The bell inserted perfectly. I top stitched it after I inserted it, and I pushed the seam towards the blue part, the top of the sleeve. And I'll probably press those curls a little bit because the lace does make this particular fabric curl. But that's okay, that's kind of what I want. Now, I went ahead and tested putting a sleeve, whoops, that doesn't need to be there, putting a sleeve into the armhole, and this little extra inch or inch and a half is not a problem. Partly because sleeves have so much easement you have to do to put them in. Now I'm still going to have to pull this gathering stitch to put the sleeve in, but not as much as I would if it was the original size. Okay, just to show you, this is the sleeve all put in to the body, and I did have to gather just a little just for the easing stitch, but honestly this kind of disappears as you sew because it's up here at the top and it fills out near the seam line. I don't know, I don't even think about the logic of it, but I'm going to sew around this, sew around the other one, and then we're going to try it on. All right, all my crafty friends, this is what it turned out like. Now, it's cute, but it's fitted. If you're not into fitted, then this isn't the shirt for you. And I'm not sure it's a shirt for me because I'm not used to wearing something quite so fitted. The sleeves are beautiful. They are nice and flowy, and they flow to the back so they won't get in your way when you're doing anything. I like that. I'm glad I used the button placket as the back, but I probably could have used one more button down here. And again, it's exactly what the pattern said. I did have to add a little to the edging there to give the girls a little more room. But if you like something fitted, or if you're just a petite person that, that can pull this off really well, do it. It is super cute on. If you like this kind of content, or you had a good time watching me try to make this, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and don't forget to share, and I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.